All right, so now we can continue, right? Okay, so as you can see, we have proc2 stud1, okay? And as usual, you can use stud1 dot, for example, name. Then I'm going to put here John, right? And I can use the cout to reprint stud1 dot name and line. And I'm going to run this program and see if we have any problem. Okay. So as you can see, we can print John, okay? Just like structure, right? It's just that we change a bit. We change the name of structure to class. And we do not need to use the keyword struct anymore, okay? Or if you have type this, we don't have to use an alias anymore. We just use the class name, proc2. And you can create any object for as long as the naming convention for the object is alphanumeric, you know, just the normal identifier rules. Okay, all right, so here's how it works. Okay, and this is public. Okay, right, as you can see, if I put it public, I can access name, quiz, midterm, and age outside of this class, which means I'm accessing name stud1.name, right, in main, and main is definitely a function that is out of class proc2 because class proc2 is from line 5 to line 13. Okay, and therefore in this case, if it is public, I can actually access any of this which I made public outside of the class, right? And see what happens if I change this to private. Okay, if I change this to private, if I run, you will have errors. Give it some time. Do you see that? Because name is not recognized as an identifier that can be accessed publicly out of the class, right? So that's private, sorry. So if I remove this, and as I told you before, if I remove the keyword private, okay, and if I don't write anything here, by default, it will all be private. And therefore, if I run this program, it will give the same error as the previous run that we have. Do you see that? Okay, now good. So, right, that is private, okay? And in some cases, for example, you want all these variables to be hidden in your class. We call it hidden, yeah, hidden, right? Because you don't want any of these identifiers to be accessible out of the class, and you only want it to be dealt with any function that is dedicated to the class. And now we will start creating some functions in the class that works with the identifiers, or what we call data members. These are what we call data members, yeah, because they are data that will eventually be displayed as information later on. Okay, so I'm going to keep this private by default, okay, and I'm going to create some functions. Okay, so I'm going to delete this. First, I'm going to create a function, and the first function I'm going to create is to get the value from the user input for name, quiz, midterm, and age. Okay, so what I do, okay, let's, first of all, I will have the access specifier to set to public for my function, because I need to access this function from outside of the class, which is later on in main. Okay, so public, okay, and let's name the function maybe get info, right, get information. Okay, and this is the function definition. Okay, and what we do, we can have cout, right, your name. Okay, I'm sorry guys, I'm just being lazy here, right? Okay, your name, right, and cin. I can use get line as what we have discussed earlier, but I'm just showing you the simplest way I can. Okay, your name. I'm going to copy this, okay, and put it 4 times. And the second one is quiz. Okay, and I will have quiz. And the third one is midterm. I'm going to have midterm. And the last one is age. Right? Okay, so through this function, I'm going to get all the data for name, quiz, midterm, and age. Right? That is the first function we have. If you realize, this function is placed within the class. Okay? class proc2 within the class. Okay, right. Let's say I will need another function, okay, to calculate the total of the quiz and midterm. All right, but this function, I do not want it to be accessible out of the class. So I want to make that function private. Okay, so I can actually put it here. Okay, or I can actually put the function here, but I just need to declare it to be private. If you see in the class situation, right? Okay, if you put if you put a private here, for example, or by default it is private. Okay, sorry, by default it is private. Okay, all the data members or function that is placed below line 6, they will all be private until at line 11, when I put public, then everything beneath public will be public. And at certain point, if I put private again, then everything that is below line 24 will be private again. And if I put like public again, then it will be public again, right? Okay, but to keep our code short and concise, I'm going to put here. So I'm going to delete and go back to the original frame, okay? So here, so let's say our function will return an integer value, float value, and I will call it calculate. Okay, calculate, right? And here's the function. Say I'm gonna let's add another data member here. Let's have another float, and I call it total, where the total will store the amount of quiz plus midterm. So here I'm gonna have total equals to quiz plus midterm. Okay, and because it returns a float value, so I will return total. Okay, so let's say this is calculate, and as you know, this function here, calculate, is private. Okay, by default everything here is private, and therefore this function can only be called within this class, and you cannot call it outside of the class. While getInfo, right, is a public class, a public function. Therefore, you can call getInfo outside of class, which we will demonstrate later on in main, where we'll call this function in main. Okay, so we have one function, we have two functions, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 data members. So we have one function to calculate the total of quiz plus midterm. We have one function to get the information from the user, and let's add another function. Okay, void. Let's call it display, so we can display all the information, right? Okay, so I'm going to use cout here. Okay, and I'm going to display the name, right? A comma here, right? So I'm going to copy this thing. 2, 3. So the name, I will print the age, and I'll print the total. And here, I'm going to put n line. But remember that our calculate here is going to return the value, right? Okay. So instead of printing the total, I'm going to call the function calculate here. Okay. Where it will call calculate. Calculate will calculate the value of quiz plus midterm. Return total, where the total value will be displayed here. Okay, so there it is. This is the three functions that we have. Now let's check if there's any error with the code that I've done. Perfect. Okay, no errors so far. Good. It is always a fun thing when you try it for the first time and you don't have errors, right? Yeah, it is for me. Even after 10 years, sorry, so many years, I mean 13, 14 years doing this, I'm still happy when I don't get errors the first time I'm doing it. Okay, right. So if you are getting errors the first time, don't worry, I get it too. Okay, I get it too, right? So just keep on practicing. Getting errors is not a crime, it is a good thing for you. So I have three functions. Calculate, which is private. I have the second function, which is getInfo, public, and I have void display, which is also public. Okay, in this class, right? So that's that. About 10 minutes. I'll see you in the next video.